Kevin mentioned the Emmy nominations, and we are going to touch on them from the point of view of things that would be interesting to people who listen to this show. And so for one, The Mandalorian, which we covered as it was playing through, received a nomination for Best Drama Series. We talked about Hugh Jackman in a role that we were sort of celebrating earlier in the year, Bad Education, a movie that went right to HBO after playing the Toronto Film Festival, oddly enough. It went up there and press screened, and then HBO picked it up. We were discussing whether that should have been an Oscar contender, but the Oscar field is going to be so strange this year. And then Watchmen, which we won't get into huge details for because Kevin's just wading into it right now, but 26 nominations. Dude, Jake, so you love Watchmen, but 26 nominations, Watchmen. Does that seem overwhelming or
no? I think that's pitch perfect. Best limited series. Every performance in that series is pitch perfect. I'm glad to see so many people. Jeremy Irons and Regina King,
Yahya Abdul-Mateen.
I mean, just really, it was around the clock. No pun intended. Around the clock, incredible performances. That was such a deep cut of a pun right there.
Jake, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So this is not in the world of Snyder's movie, right?
No, it is basically a sequel to the graphic novel, and
so
the big
Rorschach
indicator
is evil in this. Again, I've only seen the first episode, but why is Rorschach a negative thing?
Well, I think the idea is that years later, people have misperceived and diluted what Rorschach stood for, and taken it and used him as a symbol for something that he never would have been. He never would have stood for in his day. He was a good guy. But they have sort of ruined it and turned it into this horrible horrible group. But the big difference being that the series is going to, and I don't think this is a spoiler, it's going to reference the squid from the end of the graphic novel.
It already did. It rained squids.
Yeah. So something that Snyder took out of it. So whenever people ask me, can I just watch the movie? I go, not really, because you really need to be familiar with what actually happened at the end of the graphic novel. And it's going to come back up a little bit more later. But I just thought it's just an astounding piece of, I did a top 10 TV shows of last year, and it was my number one. I just thought
it's amazing so far.
It was, if I were to put all pop culture on one top 10 list, it might have been ahead of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood for me last year.
At the same time, too, it starts to set up its own story and universe and
very
world.
Much so.
So you don't have to be as familiar with the graphic novel, because once you start to figure out who the new characters are,
I argue it helps.
Sure.
There are payoffs. Sure, you could watch it without being familiar, but there are payoffs that I would argue are directly tied to the graphic novel.
Yeah. So interestingly enough, the point Sean brings up is exactly what happened on the couch last night with Lauren and I. Like it starts raining the squids right onto the cars, and it's so funny you mentioned the difference between the book and the movie, Jake, because I remember, I never read the book, but I remember hearing that Snyder obviously changed the ending to what we saw in the film. But I was trying to explain to Lauren what the squid thing meant, but I forgot that the squid part was the actual ending to his book. Yeah. And then in the film, Dr. Manhattan's responsible for half the population being wiped out, right? That's how the movie ends, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. God, the movie, I think that might be Snyder's masterpiece. It might be.
Oh,
is it his masterpiece?
It's top 5 superhero movies for me.
Is it Snyder's masterpiece?
For me, it is. I'd say so. Yes.
Or Man of Steel, one of those two. I don't know.
I think Watchmen is an underrated masterpiece. It was actually in contention for me when we did underrated blend.
Watchmen might have the greatest opening song ever in a credits, like that Bob Dylan track that plays
Times They Are Changing.
Oh my God. Yeah.
But okay, so it's weird to discuss a television series like this contending for the Emmys, and then The Mandalorian, which to me is just sort of escapism. That's like a 30-minute...
I honestly don't think The Mandalorian deserved a Best Drama Series nomination.
Well, I know you don't. You didn't love it. I understand that. But some of the performances in it, like Giancarlo Esposito is really good in it. He got nominated for that?
For guest performance, and then got nominated for supporting actor for Better Call Saul, the only person to get a nomination for Better Call Saul. No,
that's
Odenkirk.
Ridiculous. The Rhea Seehorn.
No. How did she? She's never gotten nominated.
No.
That is hands down one of the craziest things. Like Tiger King has 6 Emmy nominations and Kim Wexler has 0.
Rhea Seehorn is the heart of that show.
Yes, I agree with you.
She's the soul of that show. She makes all of that show more interesting.
Are you guys Ozark fans?
Ozark is one of those shows that Michelle and I have tabbed as like enough people have mentioned it that we have to circle back around to watch it. We watched the first season, but like so long ago, and then never kept going with it. So we want to start the first season over because I just don't remember the details.
Well, when you get around, there's a performance specifically in this past third season that should have been nominated because that show ended up getting 18 nominations. The guy that plays Laura Linney's brother.
It's so funny you say that because I didn't see season 3, but I did see the scene you're referring to, or like or partially those scenes. I went upstairs one day and Lauren was watching season 3, and that person you're referring to was on screen. I'm like,
I heard Laura Linney was great in this past season too.
This is the best season of the show.
Okay, and it's gonna end. They're going to do 2 more seasons?
They're doing season 4, part 1 and part 2, kind of like they did with Breaking Bad.
Okay. So it's worth catching up though? You think we should watch it?
Yes, absolutely.
Jake, when a show does that, so does Breaking Bad have 5 or 6 seasons?
I go by what they say. To me, it says it has 5 seasons. And in fact, on Netflix, they're all squeezed into season 5.
Okay, so even if you break it in half, you consider that a half season.
Yes,
it's interesting. I wonder what the
It's
difference is.
volume 1, volume 2.
It's what the creators intend. It's what the creators intend.